Welcome, dear listener, to this extra special, super duper special, quite possibly triggering and controversial. And there's even got a little parental warnings on it. You're putting the parental warnings in advance of your language and your derogatory nature coming out, Mr. Dunn. Is that right? Mate, this is healthcare, yeah. Healthcare is like, I don't think there's anything more serious or more frustrating or disturbing going on really in politics right now. We've just had a gentleman just shot, murdered in the street, extrajudicial killing, and I think the world felt a kind of moral ambiguity about it for sure. What do you mean, a proper businessman, a CEO? I mean, I think it's as outrageous as a murder in the street. I can't understand what the people's problem would be with that. Look, I'm being sarcastic, of course. Look, I mean, it's an unsightly business, the old insurance denial claim market. This isn't what you're proposing, is it? Oh, God, no, calm down. I think it's just important to just start. I mean, the front page has to really be at least a bit of an entry into the idea that somebody who was raised in a house with an NHS family, put it that way. I haven't been in a family that was an NHS family. Has anyone been in a family that was an NHS family? Listen, if you want to sabotage NHS, you belong in the Tory party. This is a new thing called total health liberty, which is the policy proposal, is the ideology, total health liberty. And the name of the proposal is open source medical or open source medicine, open source healthcare, just any kind of thing to do with the word open source in front of it, all right? That's how you get a policy in politics these days. Yeah, I see you're becoming a true professional, a completely sort of meaningless phrase that now you're going to have to try and paint some skin and bones onto. We've done the drug spot, the drug policy is done, so we can now start picking apart this mess. Good luck with that. Just trying to ground our introduction here with a phrase that will ring immemorial to many of us. The phrase cradle to the grave is quite profound, isn't it? So the history of this country is, taking us back to the founding of the NHS and the Beveridge Report and all the great things that we've done to build a welfare state. That's the kind of mindset I want in this space right now. Also, the mindset of abolition. So the spirit of abolition might be better to say, understanding that sometimes things like slavery and the Jim Crow laws and apartheid and things like that, the death penalty, things that are just absurd, that are illogical, that enlightened, civilized people do not do anymore. That is the spirit with which we must come to medicine with. I have witnessed things. I've been the target of things. I have been fortunate enough and blessed enough to be a supporting person in the life of people going through similar horrendous traumas and dehumanizing treatment, whether that be in a charitable space, working for the charitable sector, or in private business, running my own holistic health studio in Edinburgh and Leith for more than 10 years. So, in that time, I've been blessed with some amazing training. Mainly working with lots of people is the best way to train, I would suggest. Previous to that, my career was in hospitality, but I was a fitness absolute geek. So, you're a person who went from very, very super fit to being chronically ill, labeled permanently chronically ill by good old NHS. And that scenario had arrived in my life anyway, subsequent to the loss of my mother to glioblastoma, brain tumor. Shortly after my mother's death, we learned that both my sister and I have got fairly to moderate, at least. More so, my sister, who's I'm anonymous with my family. We don't have any names at all, so generally just leave them held on, please. You know what I mean? So we don't harass people. But the level of autism in the family is pretty high. Um, I haven't really been failed or harmed by any other institution more than those working under the brand of the NHS. Try not to assume the entire NHS is the same. A lot of the time I do in my low moments, in my most triggered moments, because I have had such relentless real life experience. And this kind of report, my work, what I'm kind of trying to contribute here, is a response to the do no harm investigation. Now, I was actually fortunate enough to be a witness to some human rights investigations taking place at one point recently here in the central part belt of Scotland, and I've had a front row experience to the maternity units, to the mental health experiences as well. I've had many experiences, not just taking calls on in my charitable experience, but really, yeah, also people coming through the door with unattended to chronic pain and bizarre ideas about movement in their body and whatnot in their head from somebody who has paid an absolute fortune by the state. A lot more money than me and is doing harm to people, enjoys a position in society of great esteem with the letters in front of the name and the letters after the name. I don't think that any of you deserve any of those letters at all. I honestly think that the majority of what is going on is a kind of hyper analysis of stuff that we just do not need. So that's what I mean when the spirit of abolition and the spirit of getting rid of things that don't work anymore and ought not to persist into the future. Thanks very much for listening to this. I just realized now, forgive me, I'm going to do very much less of this going forward. If you've bearing with me this far, keeping the screen kind of inactive is not cool. I'm aware of that now, but there's more text coming up. All right, so thanks very much. Come with me on this little journey of anti-toxic corporate healthcare into the world of open source, new age healthcare. And I'll explain to you why the horrible things I've been through, things that I can barely keep in my head, long enough to concentrate on doing the thing like a website and a video and whatnot. Health campaigner, public health campaigner, I hope so. I hope people would welcome me as such. Certainly somebody completely convinced of the idea that no one should have to pay cash money for healthcare. And at no point will I present that idea that critical healthcare or necessary life-saving healthcare, any such a thing, would be restricted due to money and class and things like that. Quite the opposite. This, what I'm proposing, will do a lot more to alleviate the current inadequacies and failings in healthcare as we go on. So bear with me, and thanks. Here we go. Let's get even more serious after this. Then cradle to the grave. We're into the liberty matters. Oh God, here we go. Nice moment to talk about liberty, actually. While we're on the subject of liberties, a lot of that's about liberty and choice and freedom and such, isn't it? I just want to be clear. There is a slight distinction between medical liberty and health liberty. Incidentally, the racket that you might be picking up in the background is just a sheer weather down here on the shore today. It is Baltic pouring rain, so that trickling rain noise is not a simulation. It's something I've added for a sound bath purpose or anything. It's just actually raining. But I do recommend that as much as possible. Yeah, nature background sounds wherever you're doing whatever you're doing. Anyway, never mind. Back to the subject. Sorry, liberty, right? Medical liberty. In other words, your choice to decide what drugs you take, when you take drugs, how you take drugs, what manner you take drugs. The access to, for me personally, knowledge, the wealth of human knowledge, global human knowledge about all medicine is I can't think of another liberty higher. I mean, I keep sort of competing liberties in my head. Which one is a higher liberty than the other? Well, health liberty, on the other hand, is actually one's ability to be healthy, right? So, in other words, one can certainly not enjoy any health liberty whatsoever at the moment in the medicalized, capitalized, sort of semi-fascistic, post-toxic capitalist West and wider world, even, because wherever there are patents, wherever there is this market-driven medicine, so it's kind of like, think of it as disease profit. That's the way I think of it, right? Because although the markets are slightly different, like, so in other words, you could argue, and I would argue, that in the UK, we enjoy a higher level of health liberty than many other countries comparable. However, that spectrum of liberties is not as clear cut as what it might seem. Like, oh, well, it's terrible in America and it's fantastic in the UK. Well, what's the explanation for the near identical outcomes then? So, like, the trouble is, right, that to the American audience, and I'm really grateful I have a big American Democrat audience. I'm really pleased with that. Thank you so much for listening. Anybody in the sort of more conservative audience as well who's interested in sorting the health conundrum, thank you for listening too. We're both competing with our ideas of liberty, if you think about it, right? Because some of us think that the liberty to choose, which, even to be honest, when the barrier to that choice becomes actual access to funds, we get the outcomes we get in America. Whereas in the UK, the access to the available, abundant, possibly, medical care conditions. I mean, I saw a young lady the other day who's frighteningly beautiful young lady at the age of just she turned 18. She's like, oh my God, can't be following you. You're too scary beautiful at the age of 18. Get out of my Instagram. But the trouble is, Instagram doesn't care about those things, does it? It just sees that this is an attractive person, but it's very interesting because she's having this nose pipe thing. You maybe know who I mean. I'm presuming she's going to have a bajillion, zillion 18-year-old boys following her account. I would hope so. The thing is, she's in a wheelchair and she's got I don't actually know enough of her disease profile, to be honest, because I don't want to be in that in my Instagram because I'm a 40-year-old guy. And you just have to be like that in the modern world, okay? The thing is, although I'm very curious to find out why she struggles so very much with her disease profile, what on earth is going on here? Well, she literally needs apparatus that the NHS are not supplying. America, that is exactly, look, I don't know who she is, but a great way to make her a celebrity American audience would be to go and ask her what she thinks about healthcare, because she will tell you how it is. Imagine being 18, because like one of her things was going to a club. Oh, for God's sake, it broke my heart. You know what I mean? Like, it's breaking my heart thinking about it. Oh, God damn you, NHS. Sounds like really National Health Failure Service. We should call you on a bad day. Listen, I hate to nag and all that, but look, when you are pinch pointing people's health, you're all the same kind of asshole to me. Whatever, if your pinch point is at the point of, well, we're not going to directly give you this thing because you personally have not got the money, or via the third party of the government, well, your stingy ass government isn't taxing rich people enough, or is paying for other stupid monstrosities like wars and things that we do not need, and will not pay for this lovely girl's ability to enjoy a normal, healthy life. Will not pay the tuppence halfpenny or whatever it is for the goddamn pipes and tubes and whatever it is that the girl needs. God give me strength. How you can look at that and still defend our NHS. Forgive me, but you are lost if you're in that mindset, right? If even slight criticism of the NHS triggers you so very deeply, I'll share with you the reality that you are just as wedded to your abysmal failure as they are in America. My point is this: I care about patients, I care about people, and I care about the outcome. And for me, it's like, well, there's knowledge, which is how do you fix these problems? And then there is resources, which is the stuff lying around. Anyone who's putting barriers between that is a problem for me because I am a health liberty champion, not an NHS champion, not a privatization champion. I couldn't give a flip which one of your toxic, awful paradigms for pinch pointing people's health. I want to rid the world of all your pinch points, you sons of a bitches. Whatever you want to call yourselves. It's going to get very heated, this podcast. There's no way I'll get through this podcast, whatever slideshow thing, without unloading how I feel about those who pinch point healthcare for people. There is no anyone excusing it to me. You are guaranteed trigger. If you want clickbait, just trigger me with that and say, yeah, it's legitimate to in any way because of public rationing. Don't tell me it isn't when I've just given you a case that you can look up easily right now, easy peasy, and see an exact, perfect example of what we are dealing with in the NHS. And I have lived it myself. So if you say to me that it's not a thing, you are doing gaslighting, which is the NHS's number one goal. Just the same as theirs in America. No difference. This is your fault. There's something wrong with you. You're the reason why you're not getting better. You're the reason you don't have your health. You should do a little self-help course. You should go on a man course. I actually got told that by a social worker. You need to go and contact some man charity for man problems. Because they're just not a healthcare or social work problem, right? People, where we're at with healthcare is so abysmally bad, right, that I can only tell you to come with me into the new age. All right, come with me, okay? Liberty, is that clarified? Liberty and consent. I do not consent to anyone being paid money by the taxpayer to restrict or limit or deny or be, frankly, just utterly incompetent at providing services. There is no excuse for this failure. And yet, people in the NHS have developed in their minds the idea that it is okay to fail over and over and over again and still defend this. So, do you think I'm going to start charging pensioners or making people bankrupt? No, we're not. Calm your juice. Honestly, I cannot explain to you how strongly I care about the liberty of people. Not your damn socialist system, not your damn capitalist system. You're both idiots. You don't seem to understand that there's a mixture of features going on here, that resources are there, knowledge is there, and any excuse to not deliver service is just complete failure of your most basic Hippocratic oath. And yet you defend it. And the only thing you go on strike for is your damn remuneration and your compensation. Psh, give me peace, NHS. I will never, ever, ever, I swear, in my political career, to those of you who do want to dismantle the NHS, I will happily bargain with the devil to get me over the line of reform and get me over the line of political power so that I can dismantle this monstrosity, this pinch point, this despicable pinch point, so that we can actually have ambulances that are free to do their job. We have ambulance workers that are getting paid decent money. We can have NHS people who are loved because they are there, because we know that they are good. They are not stuck in a position, even though they are abysmal, even though they are an abuser, whatever it is. Jesus, the reform level is huge, is it not? I've just done 8 minutes on a solid page, which I promised you I would never do. We're going to move on. Trigger, trigger, trigger. This is what it's like with me now. Alex Jones level, Joe Rogan level market, they want the ranting and the raving. I will happily channel all my pain and agony, misery and suffering that the NHS has brought into my life on this thing. So for those of you that have walked, obviously, like, let's make a deal. If I'm ranting and the screen is still, I'll just talk, right? But if I'm saying check this out, I'll say check this out, right? So I'm going to move the screen on now, all right, guys? We're going to move on. Ooh, thankfully, something a little less triggering. Why is the liberty one so triggering? Think about it, guys. Having your liberty violated is something pretty much we can all relate to. So forgive me for bringing up these feelings and returning us all to hateful scenarios, nightmare scenarios. Remember, it's not good for you to necessarily dwell in these things. Like, I've had a variety of coaching. I can report to you a variety of experiences working with, people who work with trauma, all sorts of trauma. My earliest experience of severe trauma was after my mother's death, and I was trying to do my breathing exercises and trying to do like my early pelvic pain recovery. Because I developed chronic pelvic pain while sort of trying to cope with my mother's disease in hospital. Just how abysmal the care was, how appalling the service provision was, how much pain and neglect and suffering she went through, sort of clinical negligence just beyond the pale, and then her ultimate horrific death under suspicious circumstances, which involved her being dropped, injuring very severely, injuring her head, and then dying very, very, very soon after, having just completed a treatment that was meant to extend her life. So this, of course, was brushed under the carpet by our NHS. Liberty, I have never seen a person lose their liberty so quickly because of the disease, and then have that liberty further disregarded and denied and ignored and disrespected by an institution that they've worked for. So when I think about these things, it's so very, very triggering. Forgive me. But we can all relate to having our liberty violated, right? Even right now, you might feel like you're not able to be healthy for some reason. Now, this could be a parent, could be a loved one, could be somebody in your life, could be the NHS, could be big business, could be your insurance provider, could be a religious force in your world. Anything, particularly with women, could be a gender, could just be the patriarchy, just the state of affairs, the patriarchy in America, where we're having women's liberty removed in an unconstitutional way, complete disregard for women's constitutional right to make their own decisions about when life begins, and having that overridden by private interests. So that's why the liberty thing is so very, very triggering. But thanks again for listening. Stick with me. This is a better one about core beliefs, right? So that core belief thing, you build up our core belief with really, really intense thinking over something over and over and over and over and over again in your head, and it builds up what do they call them, neural pathways, right? It builds up a kind of neuroplasticity, they call it in movement and Pilates and stuff, right? Neuroplasticity is just that cognitive behavior. Cognitive behavior builds up a certain way of thinking. And particularly this issue here I want to talk to you about is the health locum of control. All right. So that's the thing. I think that's very similar on this sort of spectrum of, what would you say, health thinking, philosophy thinking, liberty thinking. Is like, if we have a locum of control that is, I can get myself better, and this is what I teach, right? So in my studio, and among many, 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 probably most Pilates studios, hopefully all Pilates studios, but it's a weird world now. Same with the yoga people. You're meant to be holistically teaching people to improve their wellness. You don't need to insert yourself into their life as a guru. Okay, this is the thing very, very difficult about the job I do, because people really want gurus. But a guru takes away your locum of control, right? And that would completely fail what Mr. Pilates is teaching. And obviously, like a lot of what I might refer to in this, I might be bouncing back to Mr. Pilates quite a lot through this. We'll see what comes out. But the thing is that Mr. Pilates' method, what he called contrology, to all you Pilates geeks, contrology, he called it, right? Contrology. And his book was called Return to Life Through Contrology. What he's saying to us, and what was so profound to me at the time, with that, it's a kind of take back contrology, right? Don't want to get weird and political, but we are talking about fundamentally overlapping intersectional ideas about personal liberty, personal freedom. Your ability to be healthy is going to depend on what you take on in your head, is my point here. Okay, so if you're sitting down in front of a person who's teaching you consistently that you're too stupid to know how to look after yourself, that you need to take someone else has to tell you what medicine to take, when to take it, how to take it, what your symptomologies are like, it is a ludicrous endeavor that must be abolished, right? So my health, a total health liberty approach, I mean, I'm sorry, when I say abolish the GP practice, I do literally mean it, guys. I mean, you have no business hurting people, controlling people, taking away people's locum of control is a cause of disease itself. You must switch your practices from this removal of control, from this removal of liberty, from this dissector's attitude to human beings. You dehumanize with every minute you spend in front of a patient. And that is why people like me and yoga teachers and hippy dippy weirdos, or even the fraudulent ones, mate, do really well, don't they? Because why? Because you are so bad at your job. So don't shout at me about people buying candles or camel spunk and whatever to cook shark fins. None of that homeopathy bollocks is any of my problem. I teach movement science. What you teach is removal of liberty. It is completely incompatible with what I teach. Your approach to health is a disease. You have golden child syndrome within your head. If you believe for a second that you can competently administer, control, and take responsibility, and let me point out, take some kind of liability, God, give me strength. You must put down your toxic healthcare. All of it. Provide care, look after the sick, nurse them. When they're in pain, unlike my mother, actually do something about that. When they need looked after, actually do that. When they need your help, provide help. No, that's not what you're doing, is it? None of you are doing that. Not one of you are doing that. You're going around removing people's liberty, causing harm to people, doing class warfare, and narcissistically feeding your egos. That is all modern medicine is. It is like church with stethoscopes. It is like church with an occasional petri dish. Your testing is abysmal. Your testing delivers results that are completely useless. It's so cheap. It's so crap. You know it doesn't provide anything useful. On a good day, it might catch something deadly. On a very good day, maybe it will catch something unbelievably near death if you're lucky. It's abysmal the way it is right now because the doctors and the nurses and the midwives and the clinicians, all the way up to the super senior, every single manager, every single corporate asshole who works in this monstrosity of healthcare, whether it is UK, American, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, whatever, whatever, whatever. My point to the listener, to the audience, is if you do not take control yourself, you will never have health. And if you persist in giving your health autonomy, your health liberty, your health control to these other people, you will remain in disease and suffering and guaranteed to never be healthy. Okay, because they make money, profit from disease. It is a huge global infrastructure of profit from disease. If you get better, they go out of business. If you figure it out for yourself, they are redundant. Okay, this is not healthcare. Whatever it is, guys, it's not healthcare. I've made my point on this one. Look at him, happy guy. Not triggered, but definitely ranting. You're welcome. And we're going to move on to the next page now. Okay, well, this is a more positive one by the looks of it. Oh man, what are you doing here? Look, I'm trying to do a serious thing. We just had a big kind of brain vomit and download of emotional feelings and stuff, and I feel better now. That's the whole point of it. Yeah, but this one, whatever, man. Just do the positive one now and just chill out, all right? Thanks, brother. Thanks. Trying to have a psychological event after you've had any of these traumas, okay? Develop alter egos, for example. My theory for a healthy life is called the holism, holistic health approach, okay? I had a brand I wanted to originally call the studio holism and spread my wings into more yogi stuff and hippie dippy stuff and Reiki stuff. And the more I loved the word holism, it just stayed with me in my head. Because it's kind of like, okay, well, people are used to the word holistic. The holism is the brand, is the corporate brand I have for all my alternative ways of doing things, right? So living in a holistic health, you need to I'm inspired greatly by the nation of Japan. Aren't we all? Bravo. You're awesome. For the record, you're awesome in lots of ways. Not so much with the nuclear plants, and that's a bit dodgy, right? But listen, my point would be you have fantastic long lifespans. People have generally very high levels of happiness, contentedness, and they, as I say, they live long, healthy, happy lives. So there's lots of kind of wacky stuff in that. Like, I personally have no plan to retire. What is retirement? Why are you retiring? Look, when I'm too decrepit to do the tasks that I want to do, that will become an incremental problem. Up until then, I'm a teacher. I teach movement. I'm doing movement. I'm moving, I'm hustling, I'm doing things. Right? Not like Joe Biden. I mean, not like saying be like Joe Biden, go all the way. There does come a point of just, you don't need to be in the most important job in the whole world while you are that old. I think this is a different kind of pathology, right? And unreasonable. My holism businesses, a lot of them are about saying, well, how do you get the healthy working lives thing to line up with a holistic life and to have a kind of holistic community, really, a holistic politics? And that's really what I'm all about. So I'm really trying to think politically, broad spectrum, about the economy, about the environment, about our working lives, about who we work for, why we work for them, what does it mean that we do the thing that we do, how do we feel about the thing that we do, and also above and beyond that is our security and stability for the future going forward. There is no excuse, really, at all, guys, for saying to any person who presents in your surgery or your clinician room, wherever the hell you are, your hospital, your ward, whatever, and they're presenting with mental health, and you display dehumanizing, negging, and whatnot of what that person is going through. We live in a doomed world. Millennials were born into a doomed world, and then everyone after that has been born into a doomed world. And then you will see the same kind of weird profiteering capitalists walking around in our NHS claiming to be doing what? Helping people and stuff. Look, guys, I hope that I've snapped you out of this enough about why I do not and will not ever trust a doctor. I will trust evidence that a doctor puts in front of me. Of course, why would I not? That's a different thing. My point is, I do not lend my trust to people who remove the liberty of others. And I do not lend my political support to institutions that cause great harm, continue to fail to provide basic health, and our holistic health, my holistic world. The biggest barrier for that, frankly, is the NHS. It really is. That's the biggest pinch point. The greatest national liability, excuse me, forgive me, speaking of the devil, the gassy tummy there. Speaking of that one, the holistic health thing, again, it's like Our diseases are here for a reason. This is what holistic people think. Like, well, excuse me. Let me just scratch that. Anyone that believes in kind of causality and evidence and evolution and science and just the ability of other humans to understand what's going on around them, right? People who think that humans are not farm animals of some sort, right? They will be up for this holistic world. They will be really keen on holism, and they will want people to develop their own autonomy with health. They will want people to take charge of their health and get better and continue to get better and better and better. I don't know why we have a bumping up against doctors problem or a bumping up against NHS problem with these goals, but I'm willing to bet that I will, and I do. It just exposes who we are really dealing with. Okay, so I guess my work, right, is a cathartic download. So I'm really trying to just offload all the awful, awful hell that I've been through for my own well-being, to be honest, but also to kind of demonstrate that you might not be you're diagnosing yourself with something pathological, like there is some problem with your health and how your well-being is, and your whatever diseases are not your fault. I put that on all my sexy pictures with my abs out, my arms out and everything when I was looking hot about 10 years ago. Don't look like that now, thanks to what? The economy and the world, right? And politics. Your wellness is a product of the world around you. So for me personally, the best way to be kind to your mind in this way is to understand that it isn't your fault. All right, it's not your fault. Pragmatism in the human is being able to cope with the idea that, okay, I personally have to take responsibility, because if I don't, no one will. And if I don't get myself better, no one will, ever, ever. No one will get you better other than you yourself. And you have to decide that you are worth it. All right. And the big way to do that is to stop listening to medical doctors or clinical practitioners or people who want to tell you that for some reason there is something wrong with you. I, Ian F. Dunn, Manchurian candidate, weed advocate, holistic health advocate, chronic pain recovered person, I'm telling you, after 10 years, you are not to blame for your diseases. People will probably have hurt you in some way and then gaslighted you about it, particularly if you're a woman. Look, if you're a woman, I can pretty much guarantee to you that your feelings are completely legitimate. And the only way that we're going to get change is jumping on my bandwagon for change and a completely holistic health overhaul in this country. This island will become an absolute Lothlorien, Rivendell type place where people enjoy the kind of lifestyles that Mr. Pilates wanted. Mr. Pilates wrote that we should be all living to 100. I kind of believe with him. I kind of agree with him. I agree with him. There is no reason why we cannot all be free from disease. So let me just validate you, pal. Whatever you're going through, whatever your disease is, whatever horror show it is that you've met in this despicable form of medicine, whether they claim it's because of some corporate reason and financial reason, the fact that you haven't got enough money, or they claim that because your country's so garbage and you working people are just not worth healthcare and there is no society. Well, all of this will end in the new age, all right? It will. It has to. It has to. Progress is an inevitable force. It will either be guys like me or it will be Luigi's. Think how do you think his mind feels right now? He probably feels great right now. I mean, I don't necessarily, again, I don't want to congratulate the guy because he did a murder. He did an extrajudicial killing. I do not endorse that. Even if it's the son of bin Laden, put the son of a bitch on trial. That will make all of us feel better. I think the problem is, right, we don't get to feel better because he did that, right? But we all feel a little bit of catharsis because he's let his rage out and he's done a justice monkey thing. And all of us other people beating our chest for justice are like, yeah, man, yes, because it looks like a win for justice, but I don't think it is. I think that ultimately he will come. I don't know, guys. I don't have all the answers, but what he's done is different from what I am doing. I have a near identical chronic pain history profile to him, but I am older, and I will never take a gun to someone like that. No, it's just not, guys. That doesn't feel like justice to me. Do you know what I mean? Although I understand why he's done it, it just doesn't feel like justice to me. I would want to haul the son of a bitch into somewhere and do something worse to him. Something that I've come up with, which we'll talk about another day, but it's called the ego death penalty. It's not the death, but the bang bang death penalty. No. I don't believe in that. I don't believe it's cathartic enough for the people. What I think the people want, and what I would do with these sons of bitches, I'll go and get them and make sure that the public get their own personal chance, their own personal opportunity to challenge the person to their face, not with a gun to their back. That is kind of, whatever it is. It is what it is. My point would be maybe catharsis and being kind to our minds and being kind to us right now. And the best way that I can alleviate some disease just from you listening to me speak is to tell you that you are right to be angry, that you are probably not anxious, but you're probably bouncing off the walls angry about injustice. So let me beat my chest with all my intense emotions, which are apparently a disease. Oh yeah, literally, they will literally tell you the fact that you feel things so strongly, the fact that you feel emotions intensely, the fact that you love your children so intensely is some kind of disease to these people. Don't listen to them. If you want to be kind to your mind, listen to your own mind and don't listen to the horseshit manure medical white coat wearing son of a bitch in front of you. Okay? Because they are probably got harmful intent for you and see you as a money making opportunity. And that is it. Nothing. They will not care if you take the pill, the supplement, and it causes you harm. They will not care if you just drop up, your care just runs out and they just have no solution for your problem. It's just a completely unending disease. Off you go. Good luck with that. I'll repeat what they said to me at the Edinburgh Western General Hospital. Just get used to your new quality of life. Well, let me tell you, dear listener, who's tolerating me ranting and raving, your life does not, like mine, does not have to be like that. There is always a way to heal. The body is determined to heal. The body only, when you cut it, it heals. It just wants to heal. Learn to listen and trust your own body and your own instincts and not trust these don't listen to your lion-eyed doctor people in front of you. That's the only. I used to say to my clients, I don't know if it's still going to hold true in this approach with politics. I don't know if it's like a triggery thing to say, but I used to tell people, be your own scientist. You should be your own, be a scientist. I am a science advocate. I am a scientist. If it's not working, right in front of me, you coat wearing automatons will continue to do things that do not work, that hurt people endlessly. Now, I have no solution to that other than to tell the dear patient, the dear listener, to stop or at least develop pragmatism about their bullshit. Because some of it is 100% accurate. Take your vaccines. Take the vaccines, right? Just that is a no-brainer, yeah. And if you're injured, you go in. If you're having a heart attack, go in. Eat well. There are some obvious no-brainers. I should not have to caveat. Do not drink bleach, Trump listeners, for crying out loud. This is a discussion more about whether or not you are actually able to trust your health to some of these medical corporate types that I am addressing with this work. And my advice to be kind to your mind is to be your own scientist. Trust your own logic. Trust your own evidence in front of you. Okay, that's the path to health. Because it's the most reliable path to health that I can identify for you in your life. And that's my job as a coach teacher. I'm not like these sons of bitches saying, no, we've done enough research and we know for certain that if we put this thing inside your body, everything will be fine. We're just going to leave it there. That'll patch you up. Off you go, madam. Good luck with walking and stuff. No, peeing. Oh, well, do you need to pee? Is that really a big deal? Oh, yes. Hang on a minute. Let me check. That's what they're like. That's not even a parody. Oh, God, give me strength. Okay. Bye. Next slide, guys. Next slide. Thanks for listening. So this one, guys, while I'm vaping away, calm myself down. Meanwhile, in America, yeah. Oh dear, things are not good there, yeah. Let's make this a quick one, right? It's kind of an urban myth, an urban legend. I mean, I'm saying urban myth. Forgive me, because I just don't actually know for certain if it's true or not. But I asked someone on Instagram one day, is this story true? And yep. I was like, well, I mean, so it's obviously a bit of a myth legend. What? How are we ever going to know if it's true or not? I don't know. Maybe someone can comment and tell me if it's true or not. Gentlemen, it's a famous story. A subway bus needed to be moved, and it was moved by the crowd, right, in order to help a gentleman be freed from being trapped by the train. And the gentleman, although injured, particularly was notable that it was a leg injury, severe leg injury, whatever. Gentleman still on foot fled because he fled. That is the state of affairs of medicine in America, right? People are running away from the ambulances. Why? Because they are predators. And the only thing, although I've got a story here, you can read that if you want. Just to be quick, I'm going to move forward quite quickly here. But if you think about it, right, we have all the same regulatory situations here. So the corporate power runs the institutions. All they need here in the UK is the political dismantling, right, to get us to a system that's near identical, where people will be in the UK running away from British ambulances because they don't want to be hit by a bill. Now, my plan has got some deregulation. It's a mixture of a broad spectrum of things, but what it is not is in any way a direction of travel towards this system. But let me be clear with the audience, the listener. On current trajectory, this for the UK is guaranteed. This for the UK is guaranteed on the current trajectory. I would like to try and lift up the US and the UK and all the other democracies all at the same time, right? And make sure that there is change across the board in the practice, right? And then we've got the political situation locked down and the corporate situation locked down, there'll be a way out of this trap. But at the minute, this trap is an inevitable trajectory. I don't know how long it will take them, but there is nothing to restrain them other than campaigners. And congratulations to everybody campaigning on behalf of the NHS. Solidarity within the NHS, the people who do believe that people should not have to suffer these things or be bankrupt because of disease. But also pragmatically, one has to accept that the very real situation of rationing and the real situation of denial of care and refusal to treat and actual harm on the job and all that is a big problem in the UK too. So all of these raft of problems need to be addressed by any serious politician, right? In my opinion, an unserious politician, which would be the majority of politicians out there, don't really think about it this much. Okay, so give me a chance and tell me where I'm wrong and tell me where I'm right. Help me out, but I really want to avoid this type of reality coming to this country. All right, thank you. Next slide. Next slide. Woohoo! It's a short one. For the record, obviously, the discerning cannabis therapy user will always switch to a high-tech vape. I would recommend the one from the Mighty, the Stores and Bickle. Very executive product, premium product. The dry herb vape is the ultimate form of herbal therapy consumption, right? You can consume all kinds of herbal therapies through that if you want. I once had a big buffet out here of different herbs and stuff and tried lots of things. It was very wonderful. Lavender's wonderful in it. What else? St. John's Wort, if you're on, that's really nice on it too. What else? So anyway, coming back to this key thing right in front of us here, public health emergency. It is indeed still a public health emergency. How that could be the case, can anyone in the audience explain to me? Because it doesn't seem that we can get to a point where we have enough money to get the basics done, to get the NHS to being reasonable, even just functional, right? It's like a crisis. It will be for the majority of many people's lived life and experience and no knowledge of the NHS will just be always have an NHS on its knees. Well, I'm 40, so I can remember an NHS where if you phoned 999 for an ambulance, it would be there like a rocket, yeah? Good way to just tackle the funding thing up front, though, don't you think? Just to cut in here, I think you should just immediately explain before you go any further. People have listened to you rant and rave this long. Don't you think you just better cut to the chase? Because most people are worried about what's going to happen with the money. I think, let me get the bird out. Is the bird coming? The bird, not the bird. That's a terrible part impression, just for a start. Look, I'm not a proper comedian. You're meant to be the comedian, right? Okay, never mind. So, how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? When posh, wealthy people who are very corrupt in their hearts and souls are very black and dead inside, right? They pull this thing out. Whenever someone's trying to achieve a good thing, it's always a good thing. If it's something horrendous, like dropping bombs or deportation plans, there is a blank check of money. I'm going to repeat myself. Whenever there's something heinous, sick and despicable and fascistic on the menu, politically speaking, there is a blank check of money there for it. Is it the monarchy? Do they want to feast upon the peasants? What do they want to do? Let's guarantee that. Is it we want to take out somebody that we don't like in a foreign country? Do we want to... anything. You name it. Will we just build a hovering jet that barely works at all for like more money than what took to build the pyramids? Sure, knock yourself out. But do we want nurses and midwives and doctors to take home a reasonable, livable salary? No. What the hell is going on? The answer is sadism, people. And again, the doctors should be able to explain it, should they not? Like, this is what I mean. If you were good at your jobs, right, you would be able to win in politics too, immediately. Right? Who knows people better? Who knows the human mind better? Neurology geniuses out there, right? Why are you not winning in politics and fixing this problem? Because your thing's a load of shite. Like, it's just a load of shit, right? You just look. They're like wizards, these doctors. Really, they've got some skills. Don't get me wrong. The skills they mainly have are made things to be like remembering what a certain drug does. Look, we literally can replace you with robots. Okay, you've trained to become a robot. If you're not my kind of healthcare of the future, you will be redeployed in something that actually helps people. But let me put it this way: money, the costs, again, the stinginess, the denial of money, is an act of sadism done by people who wish harm, because they have an unlimited amount of money to pay for fox hunting and stuff. Right? Look, get it through your head, dear listener. We are dealing with Hitler-level Nazis, I'm afraid, all right? When we are dealing with most clinical people who deploy financial tradesmanship too. You know what I mean? Like, what kind of GP was like, oh, Thatcherism, this looks great. Let's start. Try and be rational for a minute. Try not to be silly for just 2 minutes and try and offer some actual politics. Right, okay, look. So again, a lot of my politics, because I'm a strictly independent politician, I'm a strictly freelance politician, I am a flash-in-the-pan politician, like my whole existence is to be radical and present radicalism and offer fruitcake whack job offerings, right? And see which ones of them are popular, or see which ones of them grab the attention or the imagination of the folk. That's my job as a kind of ADHD person. If you think that we have, apparently genetically, we're supposed to be here or not supposed to be here, who knows? It's nothing to do with my environment I was raised in that's giving me that. Oh, no, 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 no. No, no, no. Definitely nothing to do with the way you were treated as a child. Definitely nothing in your environment that we've allowed our friends to burn and put into the environment. No, 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 no. Just like your mum with her poor little brain and her little tentacular monstrosity growing there for decades. Somehow written into the genes. Nothing to do with stuff she was exposed to at work. No, definitely. I just know. For some reason, these scientists, they just know stuff sometimes, yeah? Right. Anyway, back to the money. Where's the money? Get back to the where's the money. That's why you need the birth. Don't forget to answer that question very straightforwardly to people without madness and insanity and silliness. People at home, when you need healthcare, you should not have to transact any cash. Right? Agreed? That's not complicated. That would be free at the point of use. Okay, right? Agreed? Free at the point of need. Forgive me. Free at the point of need. So that's very straightforward, isn't it? Let's try and think another simple, straightforward thing about money. Money, right? So the cost of care, the cost of disease, the cost of disease, right? So the cost of disease. I'm feeling a little bit like we need to do a bit of the Sir Humphrey here for this. How could I get through this page and not do a bit of Sir Humphrey? But there's no patience. There's no patience. Oh, a minister. There's only 500 staff. We could even do with 600 staff. I mean, like, so there's a lot of straw man nonsense in the field of money. How are you going to pay for that with this, isn't there? Like, I'm being a bit facetious. You may have gathered. How people pay for it. We at the moment, however, I at the moment, for example, holistic business, back when I was functional and able to run my business, not crippled by the economy and politics and all the things that have hit me over the last pandemic years, that was generating enough, believe it or not, to pay a little bit of tax, very modest amount of tax, but as a taxpayer, generated completely from the free market, off my own kind of effort, wasn't really not burning anything, not destroying anything, not damaging anything, not harming anybody, just teaching healthcare to people. This is the job I want you all to have, doctors. Do you hear me? It's wonderful. I'm not even kidding you. You genuinely get to educate your own mind about health. You get to deal with people's individual things and become, honestly, I don't think that teaching all the doctors to become Pilates teachers is not out of the question. I have some doctors, the exceptional tiny minority that I'm often referring to, some have ventured into my studio and have demonstrated to me there's normal human compassion in a couple of doctors. They blew me away, changed my opinion a great deal, did a lot. If they're listening, God, you must consider yourselves a completely exceptional from any of the hatred and bile that I'm having to vomit about collegiate nightmare people that you know exist. The trouble is that having people like that on your team is such a money black hole, right? So the liabilities, I don't even think we have skimmed the surface with this blood scandal. That's the truth. The truth is, I don't think the blood scandal has, as some appalling minister used to say, quite bad. I quite hate this phrase, not because of the implication, right, but just the use of it in general. That doesn't touch the sides. Like, okay, that is first of all a hilarious phrase, just like when there's adults around. But when you're saying it to a room full of people with kids, it's like all these puzzled children faces having asked their parents, "What does that mean, Mom, Dad?" So from them to me, f you, right? Try to just, if you're put it in parents, my thing says parents, right? If your kids hear this, it's your fault. Not my problem. I put the thing on it, right? 16's a plus. The money, the need, the idea that there's a problem with money. Summary. God Almighty, what are we on? 8 minutes, right? Sorry, forgive me for the stationary page. 8 minutes to tell you. The idea is that when people are saying to you, "Where are you going to get the money from?" "I can pay for it. Where are you going to get the money from?" You just cannot take it seriously. You cannot take that line of discussion seriously. You must stamp that discussion out immediately with the idea that how on earth is it that all these private companies are competing desperately to get access to providing these services? They are huge revenue generating services. I'm going to repeat myself. The profit margins are astronomical. The money involved is eye-watering, terrifying. And yet, dear listener, you are expected to believe and entertain for a single second that there is any legitimacy behind the rationing of money and resources, basic resources for ambulances, basic resources for doctors and hospitals, proper ones doing proper life-saving stuff, who are actually dealing with injured folk coming in the door. They don't have money to do their job for some reason because of what? Thatcheristic nonsense? They're expected to rescue people and generate a fucking profit? Look, the mentality of money in here is a disaster. When someone is talking to you about that, challenge the fundamental basis of money and health. Challenge the fundamental idea that there is any legitimacy behind this pinch point of the fact that there are resources, then there are diseases, and there's people's needs. Now, if you're going to tell me that it is some kind of, what is it, spoiled, privileged entitlement to expect that when we dial the number for emergencies and we need an ambulance, so that will come in under like a couple of hours, look, this is a complete failure. And it says there, emergency. This is an emergency. Whatever is going on with the money, it is absurd and it must stop. So we have to have the spirit of abolition. So when people hit you with this thing, are you gonna pay for it? Are you gonna pay for it? You know, when it sounds remotely like that parrot, you're dealing with an imbecile who doesn't understand the problem, somebody who is a bad faith actor, and you have my license to use the parrot. Please use the parrot on them. Oh God, if somebody used the parrot one day, just randomly out there, it would. Oh my God, I literally would. I think I would just evaporate into pure cannabis vape of joy, just a joy vape. Oh, like the greatest ever munchification of myself would occur. Somebody was met with some asshole in the political sphere saying, "How are you going to pay for that?" regards any healthcare issue. Please squawk at them like the parrot. And understand that it's not worth entertaining. Does it make sense? Don't entertain it. It's nonsense. Where's the money coming from? From all the money. From all the money. How do we pay for it? We pay for it. We pay for everything. You stingy asshole. Stinginess. I accuse you. Turn it on them. What's too much money? I'm sorry. What else are you spending your money on other than your family's health and your loved one's health? And how fascistic it is to use money as a pinch point on people's health and progress in the world. It's just the same as using education. Identical. Use the parrot. Okay, moving on. Moving on. Slide. The slide is moving on. Thank you for listening. Well, I think you should try and stick to your source material a bit more. I mean, for goodness sake, what's the point of having written all this? And then you just come on here and just rant and rant and rant. Good point, man. I mean, like, well, maybe this is, what do we think about this? More or less triggery. Let's look. What I aspire to with this campaign is to define total health liberty. I think I've done that, right? There's a lot of ranting already on this matter. Autonomy, yeah, self-autonomy, contrology. I should just reference Mr. Pilates in here. I don't know. I wasn't sure about stamping it all over the place originally, but I went, nah, just get on with it. Because the philosophy of Mr. Pilates is as valuable to teach as the movement therapy and all the rest of it, and how to curl your spine and how to flex your hips and extend your hips and move your shoulders correctly up and down when they need to be. Let your shoulders be free. Let your breathing be free. Apparently, right, Mr. Pilates, I spoke to a teacher who was taught by one of his apprentices of 10 years, right? And I've met quite a few people like that, people that are very, very close to the source. This is a great, fortunate luck of the draw, complete lottery of life of having, excuse me, landed here in Edinburgh. And of course, Edinburgh being a magnet for great talent, intellect, creativity. Oh, just magnificent people here all the time. I'm not cool enough to be here at all, to be honest. But Mr. Bly said he was never about controlling breath. Never about, look, and I found it super counterproductive to do that. It's always a part of the London style that I just never adopted, really. And I always adopted a more traditional style. So in the Pilates sense, I'm more of a traditional Pilates teacher, closer to what many claim to be like what Mr. Pilates was teaching. But I don't claim some kind of guru homage and all that. And also, I think it's very important. Like I said, he is like a Socratic, Stoic kind of philosophy type mindset. He's often compared to that because it is about adopting a scientist's attitude to one's own health. So at the moment we outsource, don't we? We give that, and I am arguing that the actual act of outsourcing, whether you could look hypothetically, one could imagine a perfectly competent doctor, consistent, loving, caring, compassionate, in your community type of doctor, like they used to rose tint romanticize that the job was, which is just, I personally have never experienced anything even remotely like that, and instead we've got this weird, like it says here, failure rewarded and protected. So failure rewarded and protected, we're talking about shipman level kind of issues, to be honest, of course, but also just like, look, have you fixed, like, I got into very, very deep dive into kind of naturopathy for a while, kind of deep dive, hippy dippy guru guys. I was eating carrots only for months on end and nonsense like that. Was it carrots? What was it? It was carrots. No, forgive me. Jensen thought the carrot was the best. Listen, detoxification and all that, deep dive stuff, yeah, it's great. It really works. There's lots of radical things that can improve your health. Like, they're just are completely ignored. How are you a scientist if you're ignoring these things? Do you know what I mean? And you say, oh, no, we figured it all out. Well, what's the explanation for all the disease? It's like there's a disconnect. It's a kind of spiritual, it's like talking to God people about, you try and ask them, like, what about the virgin birth or something? They freak out. Do you know what I mean? Like, when you ask doctors, like, why are you never achieving better health in the community? Why have you got these abysmal scores? Look, the market is part. There is no way around it, right? A market. There needs to be a market. In other words, guys, there is a market whether you accept it or not. And actually, acting like there is no market is as absurd as acting like the market should be in charge of the whole thing. This is absurd too. There must be democratization plus free market chaos and inventing and experimenting. And you need people to just radically take mushrooms in a field and see what happens. You just need to do it. There's no we then spend time figuring out why it happens afterwards. Oh, this is weird. Okay, I admit. Okay, look, there's something to this now. I mean, you're telling us it just grows out of the ground. Yes, it just grows right up out of the ground. You could have picked it up. It mainly grows in cow poop fields, and it is possibly going to radically change. I mean, really, on current trajectory, again, product failure, market failure, shares and stocks all in the can because what? Because they're not doing the sniffing out the market, doing the free market thing. And actually, in the case of medicines, that free market is, does this fix diseases? Do you know what I mean? Like the sniffing of the cheese, which if you've known, I'm joking, no, I'm referencing, and you're probably quite clever on this stuff. But look, surely there comes a point, where the institutional failure becomes so profound that one has to look at remedying the basic functioning of the institution and the basic behavior of its assets, like doctors and nurses and midwives. And I mean, really, I don't have all of the answers, but what I do have is that I think this is class warfare. I don't have another explanation for the refusal to move forward into progress, the refusal to, what, so things like liability make sense, right? So if again, it's like, oh, look, if we're not going to start washing our hands now, guys, because if we start washing our hands now, we have to admit that we've been putting diseases in people all the time. So there has to be some form of amnesty, I think, okay, realistically. So like that's why I'm appealing to staff, although I'm ripping you for how bad at your jobs that you are and how disenfranchising of other people's health you are, I know that that's something you've been taught. I know that that's something you've been conditioned to do. I know that it's something that is not only socially tolerable, it's socially rewarded and has been for a long, long time. But surely the Luigi moment is a moment for the whole world of medicine to reflect on the fact that if you put pinch points on people's health in any way whatsoever, there's going to be massive problems. And again, it's through the kindness, the tolerance, and the strict adherence to humane principles. So someone like me does not become a shooter guy like Luigi, but instead becomes a radical campaigner like me. I suggest you work with me so we can get you all out of your liability black hole that you're all disappearing down into. But the trouble is, there's a whole load of vampiric people in your organization that don't want it to happen. So it's quite scary. Mr. Polite, however, coming back, sort of trying to look back to contrology somehow, the frustration and that I'm voting for Brexit because I can't get a GP visitation. Not that the appointment would be any useful to you, really. I mean, I'm a capitalist, right? So I am looking at that as much as I'm a socialist, as much as I'm all those other things that I am. Much more of a socialist than the socialists are, much more of a capitalist than the capitalists are. And I'm much more of a radical health libertarian than most, for sure, right? I said, someone's consent to end their life, like Matthew Perry or Michael Jackson, if they decide, I want to take so much of that stuff that I just disappear off the face of the earth, or I'm at least not bothered about risking it if it does happen. I have a personal ambivalence about that situation that means, from a libertarian point of view, pure liberal point of view, and me being more liberal than the liberals, again, I've disclosed some real life experience. I don't need to mention any further details of any disclosure or whatnot for policy matters and such, but understand real life experience informs my beliefs and attitudes on the matter of allowing people to choose their own health destiny, whether that is when life begins or when life ends, or what kind of life that is as they go along with it. Now, when it comes to, oh, I'm not paying for that, how are you going to pay for that then? Well, I'm not going to pay for that. Blah, 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 blah. Again, you half-wits. Your stingy, miserly nonsense is ridiculous. It is when people are healthy, they are happier, they do better. There is no amount of money you can invest in health that is a loss. It's only a loss to you people because of your miserly stinginess. To the listener, understand this. Once you decide that you are an autonomous human being, self person, worthy of more than 7 minutes of half baked attention from a posh person to tell you ultimately that your thing is your fault, when you have a person like me telling you it's not your fault. It isn't your fault. It's not. No, it's not. Class war, hatred, insanity. Treat people humanely, for God's sake. Treat people with liberal culture. If you are a medic, a Hippocratic person, oh, God Almighty, give me peace. I think I've met a handful of truly Hippocratic doctors. Right, some of them are very capitalistic and are very close to it because of their kindness. But again, if you're defending the pinch point, guys, it's like most of the NHS voted for Tories because most of the country voted for Tories. What can I do with them? If there's folk that are going to be more annoyed at me for demanding NHS radical reform or radical reform of our NHS, if there's seriously people who are going to kick off at me like I'm the enemy here, how do you explain the current scenario, current situation? Okay, so know your enemy, guys. I will never take healthcare away from you. Whatever healthcare you want, if you want the fancy drugs and all the rest of it, I think you should be able to get them like tomorrow. Well, I've got some kind of dastardly market sensitive plans to make that happen quite cheaply, which I'm going to keep to myself. That kind of falls under the Trevor Bayliss Act, but like we'll come back to that. Access to drugs and medicines. The point is that at the minute, you do have a doctor in your life who, with no amount of money and resources, will possibly ever sign you over or agree to give you the thing that you need and you want. That's the pinch point I'm interested in eliminating. Gone. Get out of here. Failure. Failure is not to be rewarded, nor is it to be protected in the field of health because of a brand or some sense of brand ideology, puritanical ideology. No, 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 no. Forgive me. I am an advocate for universal, free, and actually effective healthcare, and actually liberalized healthcare where people will not be denied knowledge. I often cite to my clients this one about doctors. It's like when somebody I'm meeting someone who is going through this process of realization that they just are going over and over and over again to clinicians and being failed. So more commonly a woman, but generally a lot of guys too have this experience. And I have to say to them, these kind of things. It's like, look, rationally think about this for a minute. What? You know it's a charade, right? They know it's a charade. They know it's a charade. You know it's a charade. The appointment is completely redundant. They're either going to ignore you or gaslight you or deny you care and treatment that you need. The odds of getting what you think you need from this visit is absurd. It's dazzling and confusing and bamboozling to have to go, oh, Russian, oh, chaos, chaos, lots of more vulnerable people, people with more things going on than you. Oh, sorry, and expect in a handful of minutes for this person to be able to offer you something of value. It has no, next to zero value, guys. We can cater to the need of people who just need attention. People who just need human compassion, human attention, human interaction. We can completely outsource that, right? To be honest, as I say, if that is what you need, look at the happy bars proposal I've got. So I've got this other proposal for the mental health crisis. Come back to that. But my proposal for the mental health crisis is called happy bars, like a capybara, but with a H happy. Because for crying out loud, these miserable doctors, Christ, they just cannot be human to you. They cannot treat Scottish people with humanity and dignity. They cannot treat vulnerable people with humanity and dignity. They cannot look at people who present like some of my loved ones as desperately in need and deliver that need and meet that need and observe that need, which is something that goes on in the hospitality trade all the time. Forgive me, doctors. If I get to abolish all you sons of bitches and take away your stupid letters and your ridiculous, absurd corporate business models, your Thatcherite, phony healthcare business models, if I get to dismantle them the way I want to, I'll dispatch you sons of bitch into the hospitality field for a few years, right? Because I swear to God, you need to learn that you are meant to be a service. Fuck God, forgive me, you fucking narcissistic shower of cunts. Oh, the C word on a thing. I've not put the C word on YouTube before, I don't think. But forgive me, you deserve it. You deserve it. Your shitty, awful businesses, your Thatcher, Tory voting GPs. You are got to be the fucking lowest of the low. I can't think of another place in the world where you could go and be more of a toxic disruptor to the health of a nation than coming to the UK, the finest healthcare in the whole history of the world, and vote to dismantle Jeremy, son of a bitch, CUNT cunt. You people are the lowest. Degenerate. I would have you all the ego death penalty. I would have you all meeting Nuremberg, what I call New Age Nuremberg principles. I've just decided right now to call it New Age Nuremberg because you sons of you corporate bastards are killing people and ruining lives and making filthy money. It is, I can't think of worse people in the country. I really can't. Even the fucking push your boat bag people are just xenophobic. You have no legitimacy with your hatred. You are sadistic. You are golden child syndrome. Without a fucking doubt. These institutions are barbarian monster institutions masquerading as enlightenment, masquerading as kindness, masquerading as universal compassion, universal healthcare. You are a fucking fraud if you put those letters on your name and you pump around in community acting like you fucking know anything. It blows my mind the amount of damage I've had to deal with coming into my studio or into my sound baths or wherever I hang out in the world where there are people with chronic disease that have been completely failed, have all been what else? Traumatized. Traumatized because you do harm. And a do no harm and a culture of a service is what you have even been told by your own internal investigators. And you have the cheek to defend me. I'll tell you another thing, there's pundits out there. Who's that one that called me a misogynist? Fuck, what was the one? Blows my fucking mind. But this phenomenon is being called misogyny. No, it's not. It's not. It's not the fucking misogyny that's the problem here. They're absurd. Absurd. Absurd, I say. Fucking beyond the pale. Get a fucking clue about what is happening. You think I'm the only person who I'm thinking of setting up a phone-in thing because if you think about it, right, I could acquire a lot of data just asking for people to phone in and give me their horror stories. I could overnight become a real moneymaker kind of campaigner. Very easy, right? Give me some of that private money. Give me some private grift money. I could go for that, which I'm not. I could easily do it. And then I could just form a queue, form an orderly queue, go into any busy place and say, does anyone want to tell me an NHS horror story where they've been abused or traumatized or spoken to like less than human or treated like garbage or being bullied? I've seen pregnant women being bullied by fucking obstetricians, female ones. That's what I've seen. I've seen a fucking obstetrician walk in and tell a very sick person, pregnant, vulnerable mother, that she does not need to be there. I've seen shit from this healthcare. Don't you fucking tell me that you think I'm wrong and you're hanging up on this. Give me peace. Sanctimonious. Deranged. Your fucking murderous frontliners are doing things that are beyond the fucking pale. You cannot vouch for other people. Why are you doing that anyway? Listen, think for a minute about liability. Why are you doing this cronyism thing? You know, people who defend the NHS so blindly, I'm just going to assume that they're abusers the way feminists do. If I meet somebody who's daring to tell me that some man or one man or a couple of men are not rapey, abusive, or it's all the fault of men type dynamics, if you can say that back to them, I think we have to just assume what we're dealing with. And the same goes for the NHS defenders. Because the only investment, no rational, balanced, pragmatic, normal person would be able to vouch for others in this blanket way. Why would you do that unless you were trained to do omerta? Omerta. It is a class war. Let's move on the slides now, okay? Because that's a lot on this one. Forgive me, but wow. This is one of the probably the primary topic, isn't it? I'm not going to begrudge any amount of time on this, really. I'm just going to let myself go off the hook. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. Next slide. Let's move on. Oh my goodness, we're over an hour. Yeah, well, that's because you've been rambling and getting all nuts and having your woke meltdowns. I mean, woke meltdowns take up a lot of time, you know. So why don't you make it a part one, part two thing or something? Good idea, good plan. Right, we're going to drop it there. Check out, there's part two. We'll continue from here. Oh, look, this last page then. Policy summary and general hypothesis. Perfect, that's exactly what we need. Posh folk, oh dear, listen. This campaign is advocating for changes in medical regulations to allow for openly sourced and properly free universal health care. Privatization of care must be abolished. However, medicines must be exposed to a free market to weed out the bad products and services. Does that make sense? So care shall never be privatized. But medicine, we will all have to have a budget for that. We'll have to have, this is where the universal basic income people kick in and say, hey, we can do that. Let's make that happen. Why don't I just have a universal basic medical coverage, right? Which means that anything over and above emergency care is covered in that way. And people will get to choose. And the people who really want the free market, GPs, and you all want your competition and you want your free market and your competition. I suspect potentially you'll be prefer just a dodgy old monopoly like what we've got rather than actual proper competition. Mr. Dunn's being rather capitalistic here. That's the way a capitalist would think. Yes, but it's a socialist thing. It's the NHS. Yeah, but you're handling it like a capitalist because you're saying that, well, it doesn't inefficient, and you want to try and find a better way of working, and you want to create a healthy market of actual competition where people do actually have to do. I'm not saying you're perfect in that, but obviously you're competent enough to have stayed in business as long, so then someone like you should retain. Whereas maybe some of these other places you've been to, where there's a horror show going on, people hate it, they should probably just disappear out of business. Right, mate. Well, what you've just done there is prove to me that what I'm a capitalist. Look, I'm very related to Robert Burns. Don't tell me I'm a full-blown capitalist. I tried that in my early workings, and it really upset people. So, pragmatism, pragmatism, guys, is when you adopt the right strategy for the right thing. So you want socialism in emergency, socialism in life critical stuff, socialism in all these areas, right? But we need to find out and figure out where that line is drawn. That's where I think debate could be really interesting. But there are many, many things that are being paid for by the state that we should not be paying for, and there are many things that the state should be paying for. Listen to that, and it just isn't paying enough. It's not paying enough. Okay, so we need to. It's all a wee bit wrong into the telescope in that. Thanks for listening. Part two is on its way shortly. Thank you. Bye. 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 Bye.